Thanks for joining us here today. I'm Andrew Clark, the Director General of the GCSB. With me I've got Lisa Fong, who is the Head of the National Cyber Security Centre, which forms part of GCSB. Just before we kick off, I'll just note that later this afternoon there's the Intelligence and Security Committee that's meeting, and both Andrew Hampton and myself will be available for Q&A for all range of questions regarding intelligence and security afterwards. So at this media conference this morning, I'll just try and deal with the issue of the state-sponsored cyber intrusion into New Zealand systems. The other thing I'll just say before I kick off is during the Q&A, there will be some frustrating times where I tell you that I can't go into more detail. And that is because we have tools and techniques that help us through manage and detect incidents like this, and we need to protect those. Also, we've got to make sure that we learn the right lessons from events like this, but I also want to make sure that those malicious cyber actors that are out there don't learn the lessons from this that are going to help make them better next time. So with that, I'll just read you a brief statement, and then happy to open up the floor and go anywhere that you want to go. In August 2021, the National Cyber Security Centre became aware of malicious cyber activity affecting the Parliamentary Council Office and the Parliamentary Service. NCSC staff commenced an investigation and response that confirmed that parts of the PCO network and the Parliamentary Service network had been compromised by a malicious cyber actor. The NCSC provided extensive support to the victim organisations and to reduce the impact of the compromise, and delivered advice to other organisations potentially at risk by association with those networks. Our analysis enabled us to confidently link the actor to the People's Republic of China, specifically the Ministry of State Security. This link has been reinforced by analysis from international partners of similar events in their own jurisdictions. The NCSC worked with both affected organisations to develop a comprehensive remediation plan. Since then, both organisations have made further changes to their networks to increase their security resilience. Incidents such as these underscore the reality of our digital age, reaching many aspects of our lives. Both state-sponsored actors and criminal actors seek to take advantage of vulnerabilities in systems, designs and people to gain access to networks and information, sometimes through deliberate targeting, but often opportunistically. While information system suppliers and designers aim to build security by default into their products and services, we're still a long way from universally achieving that goal. In the meantime, while there is enormous benefit every day from digital technologies in the modern world, there are also risks of compromise by malicious actors. The GCSB continues to develop new tools to help protect networks and to provide updated cyber resilience, intelligence and advice, but we are not a national firewall. Cybersecurity needs to be baked into everyone's daily lives. Effective cyber defence involves good collaboration between the public sector and the commercial sector, and between individuals and organisations to protect our systems and data. The NCSC has developed a cybersecurity framework that can help to guide organisations in their approach to cybersecurity. And CERT NZ has a range of information available to help organisations and individuals address cybersecurity risk. Large organisations and businesses can go to the NCSC website, which is nzherald.co.nz, while individuals and small businesses can start at ownyouronline.govt.nz. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
What are the Chinese trying to achieve?
Well, I think for starters, that would be speculation. But if I look at what state-sponsored cyber activity has involved over a number of years, tends to involve trying to gain information for strategic advantage. It involves the theft of intellectual property. It also is sometimes used to facilitate foreign interference in another country.
And when did you become aware that China was behind this?
During the assistance, once we became aware, which was very soon after the intrusion into the networks, we became aware quite soon after that, alerted both PCO and Parliamentary Services to that, responded in providing support and advice to them. But then there is a process that plays out of monitoring, attribution, eventually remediation, but it takes place over a period of time. What I will say is that in these events, that process of detection, removal of the malicious actor, and then beginning a remediation process happened quite quickly for an actor of this sophistication.
What type of data was actually accessed?
So I'm not going to go into the details of the data specifically, but I will say that from the analysis that's been conducted, that sensitive or information of a sensitive or strategic nature was not removed from the system. Some information was removed from the networks, and we believe that that was of a more technical nature, the sort of data that would have facilitated more intrusive work following it.
How long was China, this actor, actually in our systems?
Yeah, I'm not going to give you the specific timeframes, except...
In general, like weeks?
No, I'm not going to, I'm sorry.
Is this the only time that this particular group has had access to our systems that we're aware of?
This is the first time that we have attributed state-sponsored malicious cyber activity to the People's Republic of China for intrusion into New Zealand government systems. But you might be aware that only a short period of time before this event, Minister Little had already made a public statement mentioning malicious state-sponsored cyber activity by the PRC, and also specifically mentioned APT 40, the cyber actor who's been called out in this event as well.
Can you be clear about the differences between those two cases, just to spell it out for people, why one was able to be called out so quickly and this one has taken effect for 3 years?
Yeah, so the attribution and statement that Minister Little made in 2021 was around two specific areas. One was malicious cyber intrusion into parts of New Zealand cyber networks by a state actor labelled APT 40. The other part of the statement that Minister Little made was actually about exploitation of vulnerabilities in Microsoft Exchange. So those are two separate things, and then this is a separate event again.
So why are we only learning about this event today?
So I think there's several answers to that. One is that a robust forensic analysis and technical attribution takes time to do well and to do right. The next thing is that it takes some time to remediate vulnerabilities in systems networks and be confident that vulnerabilities don't still exist. The last thing that we want to do is to come out with a statement of this sort while affected organisations and networks are still vulnerable.
Just to be clear, though, on
I'll just finish the question. So The other piece is that we also take the time to compare notes with our international partners, see what they are observing, and we get to essentially compare notes on our respective events that we're seeing, both vulnerabilities and responses. And then we get to the point where we have choice as a country when we decide to go public with this. And one of the things that you can see in this case is we want to be able to, as a country, reinforce the norms of responsible behaviour internationally in cyberspace, and that is best done in company with other partners. More voices are useful when you're going to try to reinforce norms of international behaviour.
That July one that took place though, is the difference here that the one we're talking about today is in regards to parliament systems, government systems, and was it private businesses that were impacted previously? Is that the difference?
So the July statement in 2021 by Minister Little was not referring to an intrusion into government information systems.
But you can't be any more specific about who was impacted by that?
No, I won't.
Further to Ben's question, just can you try and explain a little bit more why there is a difference in terms of the time frame around announcing what had happened and when? So obviously the language that Minister Little used at the time was similar to the language that was used today as far as the level of the assessment. So it doesn't appear as though the assessment should have taken any longer unless there were further complications with the analysis that was done here in this instance. So can you speak to that and whether there was any differences in the level or the complexity of the assessment compared to they're both 2021, but Minister Little's example and this one?
Yeah, I think there are some differences, and I think a significant difference, as I mentioned before, is that in this case we're coming out and mentioning two specific organisations, and it takes time for organisations to remediate their systems and to be confident of the security of those systems. The second piece then is that process that I mentioned in comparing notes with international partners.
As with the US and the UK, have you identified any malicious cyber activity directed towards MPs specifically and other elected officials?
So we provide advice to ministers, we provide security advice to MPs, and we give them a suite of advice and tools to make sure that they keep themselves safe, either here or when they're travelling.
What's been attributed overseas is direct cyber activity towards MPs that's been identified. Have you identified that occurring here?
In terms of the data that was accessed, that was assessed by Parliamentary Service and Parliamentary Council Office, and they engaged with any individuals that they needed to as part of that process.
So MPs' data may have been compromised through those organisations?
So our understanding is that to the extent that the threat actor had access to information, it was a reasonably small amount of information, and where there was indications that any MPs or members of their offices were involved, the Speaker and Parliamentary Service engaged with this.
And outside of this event, let's see, because the stuff that's been reported overseas seems sort of similar but not directly connected. Have you recognised cyber attacks on MPs outside of this event? Comparable to what we're hearing about overseas?
Not of the nature that you're hearing from the UK today. And the other thing that I can also say, because it may well be of interest, today the UK is talking about cyber intrusion that dates back to 2021. It's the same time frame that we're talking about with ours again, so it's not unusual. But theirs was of the Electoral Commission. And what I can say is that the NCSC works quite closely with our Electoral Commission and did that before and during last year's election, and we haven't seen anything to suggest that our own election was compromised.
Is this malicious cyber activity continuing? Does the government agencies continue to face this kind of activity?
Yeah, so if you just look at, take a 12-month snapshot of just last financial year. The NCSC traditionally deals with supporting cybersecurity for New Zealand's most nationally significant organisations. And in the last financial year, there were 316 cyber events that involved those most nationally significant organisations for New Zealand. 23% of those events are attributed to state-sponsored actors.
And what about China, state-sponsored actors?
So I think, as you can see, that from international reporting, from our own reporting, again going back to 2021, and we have had other advisories that we've placed on the NCSC website, even just in the last few months, that People's Republic of China continues to be one of those sources of malicious state-sponsored cyber activity.
Is it the largest source of that?
It is a significant source.
So going back to Thomas's original question, can you just confirm that MP's data was accessed as part of that breach into parliamentary services?
So what we can say is that from our analysis, that no sensitive or strategic data
No sensitive or strategic, but some
involving, but some data was taken.
And that's specific to MPs, just to be clear?
I think it's worth noting that we did not have access to the contents of that information, that was assessed by the Parliamentary Service, so they'd be a better place to answer that question.
APT-40,
Yeah.
what part of this Chinese state is that affiliated with? Is that backed by?
So the affiliation is with the Ministry of State Security. And just so that I can explain, the APT moniker stands for Advanced Persistent Threat, and it's an abbreviation or a term that's used for state-sponsored cyber actors across a number of countries. And really it means actors who are well-resourced and doing a lot of this activity on behalf of state agencies. And what I can also say is that the nature of those APTs across different countries, including in the PRC, can vary. Some of them look like public-private partnerships in cases. Some are targeting deliberate infrastructure for specific customers or agencies. Others are quite opportunistic in hoping to find data that will be of value to somebody.
And I take it APT-40 is a designation, a name you've provided them, they didn't choose it themselves?
No, you can Google it. So it's a term used by states, but also you'll find commercial cybersecurity organisations using that term as well.
Just to put that more into layman's terms for someone, this group, was it directed by the Chinese state to do this breach, or does it just do these breaches on its own back?
I'm not going to go into the details of that.
The Chinese state actually directed this.
I'm not going to go
There
into
seems
that.
to be quite a lot of activity in 2021. Do you have any kind of information or reasons that you can provide as to why we saw the level of activity in that year?
I'd say that 2021 is not particularly remarkable. And this kind of activity is occurring across the globe every year. But some incidents, of course, are going to have a much bigger impact on countries like New Zealand when they occur.
So you said you provided advice to other organisations potentially at risk by association, is that correct? Yeah, so were they also Parliament entities, i.e. similar to, or comparable to Parliamentary Council or Parliamentary Service?
Lisa, do you want to talk about that?
So I guess as a matter of course, when government organisations are impacted by a cyber incident, we look to make sure we push out advice to other government agencies that might benefit from it. We did that at the time, including doing a little bit of due diligence to make sure that there were no further impacts we could expect from those two incidents.
And what did you find through that process?
I think we satisfied ourselves that we put the appropriate remediation in place.
In terms of attributing this, in going through the attribution process, or in responding to this, did you use any of your legislative powers to effectively hack back? Did it require you to use those powers to take sort of what, I don't know, some people might call offensive action to determine what had happened?
No.
Does the instance that we're talking about today represent any kind of shift or levelling up in terms of the scale of attack faced by New Zealand by a foreign power?
I won't say that it's scaling up. It is a continuity of that. But I will note that, and I will talk about this at this afternoon's ISC. But the number of state-sponsored attributions or advisories that we have put out from GCSB and the NCSC in the last 12 months is higher than it has been in previous years. But I'll also just say that when I talked about before to Thomas that 23% of those cyber attacks had been attributed to state-sponsored actors, that figure of around about a quarter has remained reasonably steady or consistent over a number of years.
Is this the first time something like parliamentary service has been targeted, and if so, surely that represents a change in the nature?
This is the first time in New Zealand, but remember that you have had events of this nature occurring in a range of countries and called out previously.
And you've talked about how cybersecurity needs to be part of everyone's lives. How would you rate, I suppose, the quality of cybersecurity amongst New Zealanders? And do you have oversight over that? So one of the hats that I wear is the Government Chief Information Security Officer, and so I set information security and cybersecurity standards across the public sector. So what I'll do is talk across the public sector. What I see is a high degree of vigilance and diligence, but the level of cybersecurity maturity between different government departments and agencies is still uneven. It's very good in some agencies, and some it still is getting there. Remember that sometimes the big changes that you can make in cybersecurity are tied to where you need to do significant investment into your information systems, and so that is sometimes one of the reasons you get that variance. If I just then look across the commercial or private sector, it's not something that the GCSB polices. And just a reminder, there is no mass surveillance of New Zealanders. But I think what we can see across the commercial sector, and also what the CERT would see as they look across a slice of New Zealand in general, is highly variable.
On the question of attribution or calling it out, when you receive the threat, do you also provide advice to government as to whether they should call it out publicly?
So what we will do is work with DPMC, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We work across agencies, and often this is led from DPMC to coordinate across agencies to provide advice across government as to whether we ought to. The decision, of course, is always rests with the government of the day. Yeah.
I guess the question is, because a lot of Kiwis today, I think, are pretty shocked about this, and the fact that it's been under wraps for 3 years. I mean, is the balance right between keeping things quiet and sharing information?
All I can say is that, having talked through the reasons why we are here in early 2024 and not late 2021, all I can do is give you the reasons of how we got from there to here. But, hopefully you can see just from the UK's statement today and events also that happened around the same time frame in 2021 that it doesn't put us in an unusual position in doing that.
Just on that, and based on that 23% figure that you cited, would it be fair to assume or state that the GCSB has internally attributed other cyber incidents to specific state-sponsored actors, but hasn't yet publicly released that information? And if so, what are the factors that go into deciding whether or not to publicly attribute a particular incident to a particular actor when you internally have done that already?
Yeah, I think look, the bottom line in terms of attribution, and I want to first of all just say that we are not sitting on a mountain of events like this and deciding whether to make them public. This kind of event, specifically attributed to a state-sponsored actor for an event involving part of government, is uncommon for us to do. And now you need to remind me of the rest of your question.
Just where there are other incidents that you're aware of and have internally attributed to a specific state-sponsored actor, what is the thinking around?
Right. Yeah, so what's the thinking about what goes into attribution? So level of confidence is part of that. The analysis and sort of forensic analysis, the technical diligence requires a level of confidence. And then ultimately also, the government of the day has to decide whether it is in the national interest to do so, and that's really the ultimate test.
You say you're not sitting on a mountain load of other instances. Are you sitting on some other instances?
So if you go back to the stats that I gave you, 23% of 316 attributed to state-sponsored actors. So this activity is happening with reasonable frequency throughout the year, each year, in parts of the New Zealand information infrastructure.
Does the GCSB and its partner nations respond in kind to China when it launches attacks like this for New Zealand and its institutions?
Sorry, Thomas, what do you mean by
Does
that?
the GCSB and its partner nations respond in kind? Do we take retaliatory action, for instance, when attacks like this occur in our institutions?
New Zealand doesn't have the legal mandate, the legislative mandate under the ISA to do that. I'll take one more question.
Couple more questions.
Just on Ben's point about how New Zealanders are feeling, what message should people be taking from this? Is this a real wake-up call, or should they actually feel assured that this actor was caught quickly?
I think both. So I think New Zealanders can feel reassured that this intrusion was detected very quickly and that action was able to be taken before significant sensitive data could be taken from government systems. On the other hand, I think it is a message that everybody has to bake in cybersecurity thinking into everything they do every day, whether it's their personal devices, systems at home, or if you're running or governing a large business. It is a fact of life now.
What portion of the 23%?
Oh, we'll leave it there. Thanks.
Sponsored. Okay. I'll say it before later on.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Oh, just so that I can prepare, what was the question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.